30 seconds so that everyone can join. Hello. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronounce the country you're coming from, or maybe with an emoji to describe your excitement. I think mine would be the one with two eyes, two stars as eyes, with a big smile. Let me share it with you. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today for this session, Tido, how to start a business. And I am your co-host, co-facilitator instead. My name is Marifalian Dashkavalsi. She's the first girl activist 2024-2025 based in Haiti. And I am here with Marisha. She will be the co-facilitator of this session with me. Marisha, are you here?
Hi everyone, I'm Marsha and I'm also a girl activist fellowship under the program in She's the First, and I'll be co-facilitating as well with Dashka. I'm from Malaysia and I'm really excited to begin our talk today. So I will first be introducing our speaker and then I'll be giving the floor to Dashka to begin. So our speaker today is Lauren Wong. If you were here just now, you would know that she's an entrepreneur coach and also she's an entrepreneur and coach, and after years in the entertainment and media world and earning her MBA from UCLA, Lauren left the corporate life to become a goals coach, where she helps people unlock their potential and also tell their unique stories. She now works with aspiring grad students and future leaders around the world, blending her passions for education, personal growth, and authentic living. So everyone give it up for Lauren. And Lauren, if you would like to introduce yourself as well, it'd be great.
Just like last time, I think you did a great job at introducing me. I would say besides the goals coach thing, I'm also always exploring new business opportunities. And yeah, the oh, I live in Argentina at the moment, but I'm originally from California. So one of the business opportunities I'm trying to do more besides just coaching is connecting like Latin American culture with Asian culture a bit more. So love connecting stuff.
Can I ask when you moved to
Thank you,
Argentina?
Lauren.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No worries, you're good. I was traveling for like 2, 3 years, nonstop, digital nomading. And at one point I got tired, which I guess that happens to me at some point in life even. And I've been living here now since November, but I've been here a few times where I kind of realized I loved it here. So now I love it here. It's like I think people just assume South America is kind of like all developing, which to be fair, like economy, like there are things that are not always there, right? But Buenos Aires and Argentina, like they're quite modernized. Like they're I want to say modern. They're quite like they have really good social systems in place. So I live in Buenos Aires, and honestly, it feels like a Latin New York or like a Madrid. So it's like it's that I can walk everywhere. There's good public transportation, good restaurants, and I'm like it's pretty comfortable. So and yeah, I like it here. And the Latin culture, I love how everyone, and I hope I'm not offending anyone as someone who chose to live here. I love that everyone's a bit crazy, just like me.
That's amazing.
So yeah, thank you much for joining us today, Lauren. The far format will involve Lauren talking, explaining how can we start a business. We will ask some question, and at the end, you will have the opportunity in the audience to ask your own question as well. So without further ado, let's get started with our first question, which is what inspired you to start your career in entrepreneurship or business? And can you share a little bit about your backstory?
Right. So, again, for those who are in the last one, I can say that I don't think for me, business was something that I was actually like gung ho about growing up, right? Again, came from I started university right around the financial crisis time. So I think there was a general distrust in government and government too, but like distrust in business systems, right? So for me, I started my career in entertainment. I thought the idea brings joy, at least might be corrupt in some way, but at least we're bringing some joy and laughter. So I did that for a few years, and for me, what actually happened was that I switched roles. And when I switched roles, the other role wasn't a good fit for me. And I lost the job right around COVID. So I think that whole time made me kind of re-introspect on what I wanted. And although like at the time I kind of went for consulting, I I had like a kind of life-changing experience when I went to Taiwan, and I realized that with all my experience, and so again, I just experienced entertainment, right? But at the same time, I was tutoring, and I really loved tutoring. And I love tutoring because I was inspiring people. I was able to help people reach their goals. It was a very empowering job, like it felt more empowering than working in entertainment in the grand scheme of things. So when I went to Taiwan, I realized I wanted to live abroad. And my local friends were like, look, life is great here in Taiwan, which is true. Like, again, they have a lot of good systems in place, like public transportation that's safe, good food, all those things, right? But like the salary isn't that great. And so my friends like, you need to start your own business if you want to survive here. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but I was really good at kind of coaching people, right? Again, like kind of using what I learned about coaching through my tutoring. And at the same time, because I'd gone through so much during COVID, lost my job, ended a relationship, I had to do a lot of unpacking and development, self growth, and just to figure out who I was and what I wanted. And I think in that process, I became better at coaching. And so when I was at Taiwan, I was finishing up my MBA, but it's all online because of COVID. And my friend points out, you can help people with their emissions. Like, this is a process that we don't understand as much. It's a little bit difficult. And, I think, when you ask the question, what inspired you? Was be able to find something that I was good at, I was like something I feel comfortable and I'm passionate about, and I'm able to, and I hope this doesn't sound terrible, monetize it, right? And I always, by the way, I always say that if I could do what I do for free, I would, but girls got to eat, right? But like, I think that's something about business. I always had a negative connotation about business, honestly, because again, from the financial crisis and everything, right? But really, when you think about it, business can be good if it's giving back something, right? And I think that in the end of the day, I remember actually I think it was during consulting, it's like really what you're doing is exchanging something, right? Your time for money, your time and your energy, your skills, what you can bring and offer. And honestly, we shouldn't, like, this is a women conference, girls conference, we shouldn't undersell ourselves, right? If we have something that's like valuable like that, why, and other people are making money off of their skills, we should also do the same kind of. So that's what inspired me. I feel very glad today that I get to do something that aligns with my passions. It's something that I feel like I can grow in, which is really important. I'm always learning more from my clients, to be honest, because everyone's kind of very different how to work with. And yeah, it's giving me purpose. I learn from it and it uses my skills. I think those are three things. Like, if you want to start a business and really be successful at it, those are like the three key elements. Dash, you're on mute. It happens so.
Sorry, I was saying that before getting into business creation, what is actually a business? It is a venture, a startup, a nonprofit, a social enterprise, because we often hear so many ways to call this kind of activity. Is it different from all of those, or is it the same?
All right. So I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. When you I was thinking about that because it's like, what is a business actually? And so I did what every normal person probably would do, and I Googled it. What is a business, right? And so I don't want to sound that generic, but it's like business in the end of the day is like a goods or when you're like exchanging goods or services, right? Again, usually for money, right? But I think too, you're just saying that there's a big encompassing to that, right? There's like there's a social venture, there's nonprofit, there's profit, and there's a venture. So like I think all of these fall under the bucket of business at the end of the day, right? Because all of these you're exchanging some goods or services, whether it's your time, whether it's your money, your energy, all that, right? In the end of the day. So like, and we don't need to get nitty gritty of all this, but like for profit obviously for money, nonprofit usually exchange of time and in money and too in a sense, but that's to pay people for their time to do something. And then social venture kind of mixes it. It's like it's still for profit, but there's at least an element of it's giving back somehow. And then venture itself is like, it's a big undertaking. So I think what makes a venture kind of different, just like business and venture, you can buy another business and just run it, right? But then when it comes to venture, it's starting something new. It's starting something, brand and bold and different, and usually kind of more created on its own versus just like taking over something. But that's valid. I think any type of business, like some businesses run best if you just have a good model and just take over that one, right? Depends on who you are and what you want. I think that's the most important factor.
Given that someone has an idea but doesn't know where to start, how do we really start with this? What's the first thing you tell them to do?
Sorry, that cut out a little bit for me. Do you mind repeating that? Sorry.
No problem. Yeah. Given that someone has a business idea in mind but doesn't know where to start, how do we really start creating a business? What is the first thing you tell them to do?
Right. So I think when you have an idea, right? So this is actually from the last session we had, and I really love that Yami said this was like a reflection is really important here, right? So like we all have ideas, right? And like, but to really make it work, I think really evaluate that idea. Take that time to sit and like, where do you sit with that, right? Like I might have the coolest idea, but it might not be to my skills, right? I might not be the good fit to run that business. It might be like it's a great idea, but you got to make it formation. So I think the very first thing when you have an idea is to kind of like sit and reflect with it, right? And this is a very MBA thing. I'm gonna go back to my MBA roots. Write a business plan it out, right? Is it actually feasible? Again, we all have a lot of ideas, and while I'm all for go for those ideas, right? Do it smart. Don't just go into anything without thinking, right? So for me, I think when you have an idea, really take that time to evaluate, like what is that business idea? What am I solving, right? Like there's like almost some basic questions, like, all right, so I have I'm gonna use an example because I love example, right? So I got thrown an opportunity recently. My friend, this is actually true. My friend sells some jewelry in Taiwan, but she wants to open up, like she wants to expand to Latin America, and she asked me to help her run that, right? So the first thing I did, right, was think to myself, okay, do I have the skills for this? What would I fit into this, right? Like, what can I deliver for this? Well, I'm good at strategy. What would I be missing? Right? Kind of again, evaluate what you really have and can bring. I think to myself, does it align with my passions, right? What's good about this? Why? And again, I'm all about here connecting Asian culture and Latin if we can. So I'm like, that's another thing I can do. And then what we now do, like when you do that evaluation, when you do that little bit of reflection, you start to see the gaps, right? Like you start to see, oh, this is what I'm missing to make it happen, or this is what I do have. And so right now, I evaluate while I'm good at strategy. I don't know the Brazil market as much as I like. I do have a lot of Brazilian friends, but I don't know the market as much. And that's the first market we're trying to enter, by the way. But I do have a friend who's really good at marketing and he's Brazilian, right? So then I contacted him to kind of help me out. Really, when it comes to starting a business, planning out. I'm so big about planning it out. And again, that starts with a little bit of reflection first. Where do I stand currently? And this is actually how I go through goals, by the way, too. It's just like, okay, my goal start bits. What do I need each part, right? Plan that out, and then it starts at very simple. It's just a business plan. I hate that I'm sounding so like MBA, but being like a little bit more business minded with this. Yeah, really plan it out. Think to yourself, what are the gaps? So what am I like? Do that research. What's my target market? Right? Who am I serving? Right? Again, like I'm not the first genius to think jewelry in Brazil, right? Like, okay, it's manufactured in Taiwan. We're bringing it to Brazil. What's going to be different? What's going to be our selling point? And again, that takes a lot of kind of reflection. So I think getting that down, writing it on a plan, that's the first step if you have an idea.
Okay. Based on your experience or your coaching experience, if I can be more specific, what are the most common mistake when starting a business?
I think not realizing how much goes into it, right? Like, again, when you are working for a corporate or someone else, it's kind of easy. Like there's still challenges, obviously. Again, you should be growing and stuff, right? But that structure is there for you, essentially, right? Like your boss is there to give you like, okay, guidance, you try it on your own, and then you learn from it. It's pretty systematic. And with business, you're starting a business, you never know what's gonna happen, right? Like right now, I'm in third year of my business, and each year I'm learning something new, something I can change, something I can develop further. And by the way, each year is different curveballs. Like this year, one of my big challenges is that so I work with admissions, right? And the goals I usually work with the admissions for MBA or masters. And as some of y'all might know on the news, higher education is kind of being, in an interesting place right now due to the political administration, right? I have to adjust to that, right? I have to like figure out how am I going to survive through that? How am I going to pivot? How am I going to market differently? So I think something that people need to realize in business is you can have so many ideas, but also be flexible as it goes along because there's so much that you cannot predict. And so creating that structure for yourself, but also being flexible so that, when your structure isn't working or that what you had in mind isn't working, be able to react. I think that's something that's about business. It's always changing, so be aware of that.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I think Marisha has some questions for you also. Marisha?
Yeah. So Lauren, what are some of the effective ways to build a strong brand identity for a start? Oh, sorry, from the start.
Yeah, no worries. So that's a good question. I think that's something I don't want to say I struggled with. Actually, I didn't struggle with that much, but I'm having trouble marketing. That's my problem. But again, this comes back to analysis of yourself, right? Like create a vision of what you're trying to do. So when I started my business, right, of my goals coaching business, I was like, I want to help people reach their dreams. Um, of like going to MBA programs across the world that are top programs, right? My vision is to help people do that, but not only that is to help them build their confidence, right? It's not just getting them into schools. That's, and to be honest, I think other admission coaches can do that too. But for me, what's really important is building their confidence, right? And with that, I was able to kind of go like, okay, for me to inspire confidence in other people, I obviously have to have confidence myself. And luckily, through my many failures, I've developed that. Like when you, by the way, when you go through many failures, that's where you develop confidence. It's just like at this point, throw anything at me, y'all. I've been through everything. Like I can fail again because I know I can pick myself again, right? So I think that for me, when I was doing my brand identity, again, I was thinking to myself, what is different also, right? Again, when you start a business, I like to think that realistically, every business in the world has been started already in a way, right? Someone sells cups, someone sells coffee. So again, everyone has like been selling some type of thing, right? Everyone sells social media, right? There's different ones. What is your product different? What is the different differentiation of it, right? Because again, there's so many different coffee shops. How do they all survive? Because they're just differentiation in that brand identity. So introspecting yourself, what is it that you offer that's different, right? And then building around that brand. And so again, I think that starts from having a vision. What did I want my business to look like? And when I knew what I wanted my business to look like, the goal was again, not only to help people get into MBA programs, but to actually build confidence. I was able to go, that's the image I want. I actually, because of that, for my business, I actually lean more into being American, right? Being a little bit more bold. Because, if I was being a little bit more local Taiwanese market, to be honest, where Asia tends to be a little bit more, quiet, a little bit more reserved, then I would be in different energy completely, right? But I was like, my goal isn't to do that. My goal is to actually be like that person, like they realize, oh, like to have that confidence ready for MBA. And that's how I built my brand. And with that, I'm also, again, very American. So I'm much more casual kind of in a sense too. Like when I do my calls with them, I'm a lot more chill. And that's how I built my brand. I do think that's what makes me different. I mean, having your brand identity is so important, right? Because again, everything's being sold. So what makes you different? And in the end of the day, like I also think there's so many different clients available, right? Like I use it this way, and I'm gonna use China, for example. China has 1 billion people-ish, at least, right? If I capture 1% of the market, which 1% is not a lot, but 1% of 1 billion people is a lot, right? And again, there's so many markets out there. Just how you differentiate yourself and make sure that rings true. Because the people who want to do, they want your business, they want to join your business, right? Like think about the loyalty that some brands have, like Patagonia. It's because they like that identity. So I think it's super important, and it comes from having the vision of what you want in the first place.
Thank you for that, Lauren. Um, since like starting a business, like you would probably need to like require funding, right? Could you share how someone could do that, considering that they want to start a business but they don't, have any idea on, how to like fund their business, and maybe share some of your personal experiences in doing that as well.
Oh, so I'm gonna be completely like direct and honest with this. So for me, my business luckily didn't take a lot of funding, right? I analyzed it and I was like, okay, even if this business fails, all I lose is time because I don't like it's like minimal funding, to be honest. Like it was like, get a website, Lauren, like that, pay for that. So I was lucky in that sense. But I think, taking like, I'm just lucky, go ahead and figure it out, y'all. That's not my goal. So I think, but what a key thing I said here, right, was I said I analyzed what I needed. Okay. So I think if you're looking for funding, right? Now, there's again kind of idea. There's so many people out there with money, including your own parents, right? Like, and you want to fund, think to yourself, like, if someone asks you for anything, you want to know like they know what they're doing, right? Like they know, like, hey, can you help me with a favor? And like if you explain to them, they're gonna be much more willing to do it, correct? So similar to that, analyze what you need, right? Like be really professional about, like, look at the numbers, right? So I have a good example. My one of my friends here, she told me she wanted to start a business, and I was like, okay, what business? She's like, I don't know, selling something. And I'm like, what do you mean selling something? She's like, oh, I don't know, import something and then sell it here. And I'm like, girl, if you don't have like that plan, you don't have analysis of what you need, no one's gonna fund that, right? Now, that same idea, let's say like if someone says, I want to sell something, I want to start a business and I want to sell something here. Now that person goes to me. So here's the cost of the importation, right? This is how much I need to have a storefront, right? I looked and done my research. To have this, I would need $5,000, for the 3 months to be able to have a storefront. I'm going to need to hire 2 people to run that store, and this is the wage I'm setting, right? When you have those numbers and you've shown that you thought it through, that's going to give you much more of an opportunity for funding, right? And I think to that point, if you're starting a business, right, you got to know your limits and what you can put in, right? Like again, we all have ideas. Love to see people all launch them, but let's also be realistic. If you're in a place not to launch that, then you can't make that happen, right? Like, again, my friend, to be honest, if she had started her business, I was like, you were looking at negative because she wasn't thinking it through. So I think, again, when you want to do funding, think it through. This is, again, back to the self-evaluation, right? Where do I stand? What can I bring? What can I offer? What's different? All right, to make that dream happen, how much do I need a budget? Right. And again, when you have that more comprehensive analytical look, you're going to be able to like, I won't say, I don't want to guarantee it, right? But it's going to be a much higher chance you're going to find someone who wants to fund it, right? Like it's almost like there's this concept in parenting, which I a little bit kind of agree. It's like there's this thought, I think Will Smith actually created it, but he lets his kids do anything they want. Okay. He says, like, I let my kids do whatever they want. They have to explain it to me. Right. Like it's like, oh, why do you want to do that thing that's stupid? And goes like, well, I thought it through. This is the reasons. And if, again, the reasons, like my friends are all doing it, that's a dumb reason, right? But it's like if you thought it through, you're gonna be able to convince people more. So again, I don't know if I completely agree with this, actually, the parenting idea, but like the thought here is think it through, analyze, do your research, right? Really make sure you have those numbers for people. Because if you're going to ask for funding, they want to want credibility. And that's a sense of credibility. Like realistically, think about all the people who get funding, like the guy from WeWork, right? Which terrible example in a way, but that guy still gets funding. And it's because he has credibility. So I think if you're just starting out something, you want to build that credibility. And to do that, show that you got that numbers, right? Show that you've done their thinking. So I think that's, and ideally someone resonates with your idea and then gives you that money to start your business idea.
All right. Since we're like under the topic of like monetary, would you say that it's common for businesses to not turn a profit in their first year? And if so, like, should we be looking at changing our strategy?
Right. So again, back to the idea of like analyzing the situation, right? There are some businesses that you have to be really realistic, and yeah, you're not going to make a profit in the first year, right? So it can be normal, but it's not always, right? Like for instance, for me, my business honestly was, I planned it out, I looked in the numbers, it has to have profit, Like I was spending only $200 for a website, which means that if I hit negative, I did something very desperately wrong, as in I got 0 clients, right? So I think, again, yes, there are some businesses where you're gonna have to, right? Like you have to invest a lot of money in, like for a restaurant, you have to invest a lot of money in, and you're just not sure if it's gonna work, right? That, yeah, you can expect to hit not profit yet in the first year. Actually, think about it this way, y'all. A lot of these big tech companies don't hit profit at first. It's crazy, but like, I remember reading an article where it's like, Uber finally hit profit. I'm like, Uber's been around for years. How is it just hitting profit? So some business, yeah, it's completely valid to not have profit. But I think what's more important is like, is it something that's planned, right? It's like, what goal is it, right? Again, Uber got so much funding still, like years without profit. Why? Because they're able to prove that there is some, like they planned out what they were doing, that they had a goal with it, right? And then with that, if you are in a situation where you're not hitting your 1 year profit, I think, again, this happens even with the tech companies, they adjusted, right? Like, okay, and that adjustment could come from the pressure, the stockholder pressure, but I think the idea is come in it with plan, right? you need to know, like, if I own a business that's not going to make money, all right, but my end goal of the business is to do this, right? So I still have opportunity. I will run negative, but there's profitability opportunities in the future. And if you're in a place where you're like your business is supposed to be making profit, but it's not, that's the idea of being flexible and adjusting, right? Again, luckily, I've been very lucky that my business is pretty cost. If there's not a lot of cost, my business does not run a lot of cost, right? So for me, it's like a very easy profit margin. However, at the same time, I had profit goals each year, and I would, evaluate, like, if I'm like, I'm not hitting my profit goals right now, I need to try something different, right? So that's, again, even though I was still not, I wasn't negative ever, I still had to adjust my ways of working based on my goals. And so I think that's the idea, like, whether or not you're hitting profit or not, is it aligning with your goals? Is it aligning with what you planned out? And if not, adjust as necessary.
I see. Thank you so much again. Throughout your entire career, were there any challenges that you faced, and could you share with us like how you navigated that challenge?
Right. I mean, so many different challenges. I think that's something about running a business. It's nonstop challenges, right? Like, there does get in a place where it eventually feels better. And I have a friend of mine who really does business like really well in Taiwan. And she's like, at 3 to 5 years, you get to be in a place where you get used to those challenges, but there's always challenges, right? I think for me, my key challenges. I think every person challenges are different, by the way. Um, so luckily for me, I'm good at time management. I'm good at kind of resilience. I'm kind of good at like experimenting new ideas, right? So those were never challenges for me. But I think for some people, by the way, you're starting a business, that could easily be a problem, right? Like, we all procrastinate. We all, like, I feel like time management's like everyone's kind of like vice there. So again, everyone's different challenges. For me personally, a big one was, it has been and continues to be, marketing. I'm just absolutely not great at marketing. Like, and I think that partially is because I don't know my market enough in Taiwan. Like, yes, I traveled there and I even lived there for a bit, but really getting deep into the culture. I speak Mandarin pretty fluently, but like speaking Mandarin and writing Mandarin and understanding those like the Taiwan nuances, even, right? It's like not even just Mandarin, it's like the nuances of that local culture and everything. That's been a little bit tough for me. So I've not been great at marketing. But I think the solution to this is seek out networks, right? Seek out help. So I definitely hit different challenges. And I think the big thing here is try to find what you can do to solve that. Again, I hit a little bit of problem. What my first 2 years was like, I didn't know how to actually get clients, right? So I just talked to my friends. I literally talked to my friends in Taiwan, like, hey, if you have anyone who's applying, just send them this way, right? And honestly, I solved that major problem. I got two people, and this was my first year operating. So I was okay with this. Didn't need a lot of people yet. Two people ended up working with me, signing with me, and they were successful. That got me more clients, right? That was like one problem done. And to be fair, even every year I still go like, am I going to get enough clients? But I know now that this pipeline of like referrals is good. And right now, marketing, I finally decided, I'm like, you know what? You tried 2, 3 years of marketing, Lauren. You're not great at it. I decided that I'm going to hire someone, right? I'm going to hire someone local. I consulted my friend who's a marketing person. She's been like connecting with people. So I think really finding those resources to address them. But everyone's a different challenges. It's just be very aware of them, and whether you try to solve it on your own and try different things, also know when to reach out outside, right? Like, get advice from other people, or even if you have to, pay a little bit. And back to, remember saying the profit thing and money, I have to keep that in mind. This is like actually expense I didn't have before, was that I didn't have to pay for marketing. How much is it going to affect my business, right? Like, how much is going to cut into my profits? Is it worth it? That kind of comes back. It's all about planning.
Thank you again. I guess a follow-up would be, um, considering that you've faced challenges before, and I can only imagine like in the beginning it could be like difficult. So how did you stay like motivated to keep on going, with your plan?
Right. I think taking every little win, right? And again, we kind of talked about this in the last discussion, was with when you start your own business, you have to be okay with failing, right? Whether the business itself failing or you failing at one aspect, right? So in my role, my business, I've tried to do marketing, which is like having events, like, having like free webinars kind of thing, right? And again, failure was very clear. I had events where no one showed up, or like two people showed up, and I'm just like, and I invested $100 to market or whatever, right? But I think yeah, I think it's just like, take those little wins, right? Learn from what you can. And when you start a business, again, you have to be okay with failing. Just be really okay with it. And being okay with failing means take it as a growth opportunity. I think for me, that's what I was like, I'm going to try. Again, when I started my business, I was like, I am not sure how successful it's going to be. At the time, luckily, I still had my full-time job. So I was side hustling kind of thing, right? But I was very nervous. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get any clients, but working my clients and the little wins, I was able to get my clients into different programs, which again, by the way, back to like adjusting as necessary. If none of them had succeeded, that would also have been a sign to me, okay, I tried, I failed in like, making this business idea happen, but maybe I learned some things, like I realized I am good at, again, luckily my business succeeded, but let's say in this case it didn't succeed, right? Let's say in this case, I didn't get anyone to any programs, but they're like, I did feel more confident working with you. And I'm like, okay, that is something that does work. Accept the failures and take the little wins and move on with that. Because again, we're always going to hit failure, always going to hit challenges. And instead of seeing it as like an end point to not do anything else, think of it more as like an opportunity to grow.
I'm sure that was very helpful for all of us to hear. Okay, I'm going to pass back the floor to Dashka. Thank you so much, Lauren, for answering those questions.
Thank you, Marisha. I think it's time now. We can open the floor to the girls in the audience. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Open your mic and ask, or write them in the chat. So allowing one can answer maybe your uncertainties about creating a business. In the meantime, I have a question for you regarding the financial part of a business. Is there any tips or way to process to fix price for product or services?
Right. So when it comes to the pricing, right? Again, back to analysis, right? So for me, when I was looking figuring out prices, first of all, research. Again, this is kind of like if we plan out, we think through, analyze, like, okay, so Lauren, you have this offering, right? You're gonna do MBA admissions support for people in Taiwan. All right, analysis a little bit. I need to understand the Taiwan market, right? I'm trying to compete with Taiwan, right? So I decide to do some research, how much it is. I'm not even kidding y'all. I just cold call some companies, ask them how much they charge. I'm like, oh, I'm interested. My daughter's interested, blah, blah. How much do you like? Okay, the cost will be this much. Okay, great, right? And I did a self-evaluation of myself. I'm like, okay, well, considering that I'm new, right? How much would I charge? And by the way, you can cold call competitors. You can also just ask people who are currently seeking those, right? Again, when I started my business, I was like, let me talk to people who are applying for MBA. How much would you be open to paying? How much are you paying right now? Like one of my clients told me, she's like, this is how much I'm paying. And I'm like, okay, but that guy has like 10 years of experience. Let's be evaluating yourself, Lauren. How much experience do you have? How much can you offer? And so for me, actually, and this is a good way, like, again, depending on your business, right? I actually, this is a good business for a lot of people, including Uber did this. I made my prices very low at first, right? I got people just to work with me, just to like be the word of mouth that I needed, right? I gave my client like a super low price that would be impossible for her to find. She gave me a shot and it was a good ROI for her. And at the same time, that became a little bit of a word of mouth. So I think when it comes to pricing, again, do analysis, all right? Like think about what's out in the market already. What are people paying? What is your offering? What is it different? Right? In fact, you can actually charge a premium in some cases, depending on your product, right? You go like, okay, that's what's being offered right now, but because my product is different and new in this way or whatever, right? Like, let's use a coffee shop example, right? Okay, an average cup of coffee right now sells for $3, but you know what? I can actually charge $5 for my coffee because my coffee is imported beans from this special place. It's special, blah blah, right? Again, if you do that research, you can find out how to price. And so do the research. That means talking to people like current clients, like current people, like current customers that you're aiming for. Um, Talking to competitors, right? That's actually something I learned from my consulting project was, yeah, talk to the different people out there, do that research, right? And then from that research, analyze yourself what you can offer, then price accordingly. And then also adjust, right? Like I have moved up my prices every year because I'm like, I have more experience now. And I also check industry prices. And I even asked ChatGPT, y'all. Like I was like, ChatGPT, for some of my experience, how much is it? And they like told me, and I'm like, okay, good, I'm in the ballpark. I would also just like to note, if you're using ChatGPT, which is a great resource for research, just make sure take it with a grain of salt and follow up with real people, like real people confirmation and stuff.
Thank you so much. As we are all maybe girls, young girls, I think we have one question. Let me just read it first and then ask mine later. The question said, what advice would you give to someone trying to balance out their social life and starting a business?
What? So that's a good question, actually. I think it depends, again, like the self-analysis, right? Like, what are you trying to get out of this business? For me, when I started my business, I was working full time, right? And I wanted to try this business, and I was like, I should do this when I'm full time and have actual income coming, right? So I would say that I did give up a little bit of my social life, but I still balanced it. Something I'm good at, and yeah, like we all different skills, is time management, right? But to be honest, I think a little like secret of time management is taking that step to analyze yourself, right? Taking that time to analyze your week, right? So I would like look at my week in advance. I'd be like, okay, Lauren, these are like, this week I had this much to do. I have this plan. I have these goals, I do every day, right? I kind of even journal it. Like I had a routine in a way, right? And so I actually had time still for social life because I would be able to schedule. I'm like, I'm going to put 2, 3 hours into my business. I'm going to do this much, how much I expect to do. Like, and by the way, those are guided by goals, right? Like, for instance, when I started my business, I was like, okay, my goal is to get business plan done. And I need to get that done by end of the week. I'm gonna put 2, 3 hours each, like each Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that gives me weekend free. If I want to be like, you know what, I don't have that time because I'm other stuff. Okay, then I'm gonna, schedule more that impacts my social life. I think in the end day, what I'm trying to say is like, how do you balance it out? It is on you. It's on you to figure out what is that balance, but think to yourself, what is like your goal, right? And then analyze that. How can you schedule that in? It is kind of tough. Again, it depends on the business as well. And by the way, I would say nothing about business. If you're working with someone, that's actually kind of social too, right? Like right now, again, I'm starting another business idea with my friend. I think I partially working with him is social. Like we make it kind of fun, right? Of course, we're doing talking business, but we're also keeping it social. So really depends, I think, on the business, and it depends on you and your own what you need. I'm an extrovert. I need people. I can't just work every day. So I schedule that for myself to actually have time for social life. Maybe less than usual, but still something. Yes.
Thank you so much. I guess it was Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie, for the question. Eva, feel free to ask a question. You are new, and the question that I was about to ask you was, don't you think that our age can affect the amount of price do we charge for our service?
Like the age of someone?
Yeah, the age.
Yeah, like dynamic pricing kind of. I do think that can happen. Again, I think like this comes back to your goals, right? And your vision. So one of my goals with my business in this coaching business right now. So I work with Taiwanese clients and they're willing to pay more, right? But my goal is to be able to spread that more to other people. Actually, right now my goal is to keep it really like Asian focused because I have a very strong tie to wanting to build confidence Asia, right? However, now that I'm Latin America a bit more, I also want to help some people here, right? I also know the price point here is different, a lot lower, to be honest. Like they just don't pay as much for educational services as much as Asia. So I do kind of do that. I think dynamic pricing can work and depends on your business, depends on your vision. Like if my thing was like, no, I'm working with the most elite, and doesn't matter. And by the way, that's a vision and that's okay. I mean, personally, that's not my goal, but like other people, like my thing is my brand is like elite. I only help the people who really want to go to those programs. That person can charge whatever she wants or he wants because their goal is to be like, I'm prestigious. I'm not here to like work with people who need, oh, I don't have as much money, right? Again, that's their own choice in the ultimately, and that's their vision. That's great. But I do think that dynamic pricing works. Just when it comes to dynamic pricing, keep it, does it align with your goals ultimately?
Okay, perfect. We have 3 minutes to go, but I have one last question. After creating or launching a venture, what theater should we use going forward? I heard some people on the internet or on social media calling themselves entrepreneur, business owner, or CEO. What is the correct theater?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I think that the titles things, I don't want to be mean. It's kind of silly, right? It's like there's so much focus on that. Honestly, for me, I think when it comes to these kind of titles, I'm the boss of myself. That's what I like to call myself, right? Like I don't know, when people ask me, I'm like, oh, I run my own business. I think titles, if you want to do that, sure, but there's almost like overemphasis on it. Focus on what matters, right? Like focus on what matters. Like in every business, it can be different. Again, mine, I don't feel like calling myself a CEO. I don't have any employees. It's kind of weird, right? But realistically, I'm also CEO of my own business. I say I run my own business. That's what I think to myself. At the moment, I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur because I only have this business and I didn't think of it as like I'm launching more, right? And even as I kind of think of the next business idea, I don't think of myself an entrepreneur. I'm not like, seeking all those, I'm not like, that's not my focus, I guess. My focus here is I want to do like cool things that I love and run my own thing. I'm a boss, and I love doing that. And to be honest, I'm not a boss to anyone else. I'm a boss to myself, and I love that. So I think instead of focusing so much on these titles, just focus on what really matters. Like you can, who was it that said, I can have the boringest job title. That doesn't matter. It's really what you do and you feel valuable in that. And job titles are just arbitrary ways to us hierarchying people. But if I do cool things, I do cool things and I love what I do. And if money, let's be real, money's a factor. I make my money that I make. That's it. That's what matters, And I don't think we need to overemphasize that. And like that's almost like I feel like it's a very man-made thing, don't you think? Like it's a very concept for men. Like I need a way to prove myself to do that when you can just be a boss.
So thank you so much. Yeah, I think if I drop a question, let me just read for you. It's the last one.
No problem.
What are some key steps to ensure sustainability when starting a community-based business, especially in marginalized areas like Turkana, Kenya, where resources are limited?
That's a tough one since mine's not as big and community based. Again, I'm gonna go back to the planning thing. Honestly, like maybe I'm a little too pushy of that one. Like, and I'll say that's because one, I was in a MBA, like, I studied my MBA and everything, right? And it's a lot more structure, but creating that structure, planning things out, right? Like, what do you hope to get? What are those metrics? Set those metrics up, right? Like you're saying, how to keep it sustainable. What does that mean to be sustainable, right? Like right now for my business, again, I can't say for the community as much because I don't do that specifically, but for me, I have different metrics that I consider are important, right? When you're starting anything, again, what are your metrics? Not everyone's metrics is making money or client conversion or anything, right? So I think with that, what does it mean to be successful for community? Are you gaining money for them? Are more people joining? Like again, set those metrics. And when you set those metrics, taking that time to analyze plan out and analyze what needs to be done to hit those metrics, right? But again, every business is different and those metrics are different. Just understand what those are for you and then take the step, plan out, like, okay, here's what I need, next step to make that happen.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I think it's all for the question. Marisha, would you like to add something?
I guess just to wrap it up, do you have any advice for anyone who's wanting to start a business but they're like kind of scared to get into it?
Right. Like, do it, right? Like again, if y'all can't tell by the two things two part sessions I've been part of, I'm so big about like learning and growing. And I remember hearing this, read this somewhere. It's like failing fast. And it's the idea that like, and it's actually a very tech idea, by the way. And so I also, by the way, take that with a grain of salt. 'Cause sometimes I feel like tech is a little bit too like just do things, right? And then they just go without any boundaries. But I think one thing I would say is like failing fast, try it out. Be smart with your failing, right? Like again, don't just like try it without thinking it through, but try out all ideas. If it doesn't work out, there's something you can learn from it. Which, by the way, you can try out an idea and it might not be the right time, even, right? It could just be it. You tried it out. All right, I have all these, and then this was great, this worked, but I need more schooling. I need more network. I need better sources for my product, right? But I think if you're in that place, like, should I try it out? Try it out. Again, the worst thing that happens is ideally not money because money's a little bit harder, but even that money, I always say money's money. It comes and goes. Honestly, it's like the most like it's kind of estimating money, but at the same time, that's really what it is. But try it out. Go for it. Just do it with a plan so you know that you're going with the best possible foot, right? And if it doesn't work out, learn from it. Again, it can just be like not now, but later, right? Or it can be like that was a great idea to have. That's not an idea for me to work on. Again, even right now when I'm going to this like business with the jewelry thing, right? Honestly, I'm a little bit worried, y'all, because like I don't know a lot about manufacturing. I don't know a lot about like shipping and like importation and like local Brazilian market. This is out of my comfort zone always. But I'm going for it because I think it's a cool opportunity. And worst comes to worst, I learn things I'm good or not good at. And like I definitely had an experience where I like this is more corporate, so not business exactly, but I switched roles from my entertainment role to like do operations at a mobile game company. And honestly, y'all, it was like I failed miserably. I do not do operations well. I do not like the mobile game industry, but I went for it and I learned a lot. And I learned I don't want to do that again. And I also learned things I can take on to my next role. I actually learned from them the idea of pivoting, being more flexible. Coming from entertainment, which is very like traditional, I had to learn to be flexible. And even though I didn't love that role, I learned some things that have shaped me who I am today. And I think made me a better business leader, better, better at business, better, smarter in general in life, to be honest. So then go for it. You're going to learn something. That's the most important thing.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren, for that advice. I think this is all that we have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Lauren, for joining us.
Thank y'all. It's been great.
All right. Thank you again for joining our HERizon Fest, and we'll see you in the next session. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.